Past players, past legends, past legends.
And tonight we are very pleased and pleasured to introduce Greg Smith. Greg, of course, played for South Melbourne, Sydney, 80 to 84, 1984, 96 games, 54 goals. Then for the Pies in 85, 86, 31 games, 7 goals. And, of course, finishing up at Centrals, 87 to 92, 100 games, 90 goals. So 227 games overall. Of course, he captained the Dogs. Welcome aboard, Smithy.
Yeah, mate, thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us, mate. We'll start off like we do with most of our guests. Your junior, where did you start your juniors, mate? Obviously from Wagga Wagga there?
Yeah, man, it was a little town just outside of Wagga by the name of Ardlethan. Started all the juniors there. We had a coach called Barry Connolly who come there and coached. He had a kids competition, every Saturday morning for everybody from 5 to 12. So that's basically where I learned all my football.
Did you play school footy there as well?
Man, but it was just like local, so you were just playing against the same people that you played against on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Yep. Of course, Wagga Wagga is an interesting spot in New South Wales because it's probably one of the few spots in New South Wales where Australian rules footy's got a heavy presence. And, of course, pretty well known cricket-wise, Mark Taylor, Michael Slater, Jeff Lawson. So it's very much a sporting place, Wagga Wagga.
Yeah, mate. In both, like you got rugby league, you got Australian rules, and you've got the cricket, obviously. So, like you had, like with the rugby league, you had Greg Bradnall, Peter Sterling. Well, mate, there's a heap of them that played up in Wagga itself, and then went and played rugby league in Sydney. So, it was. And then you had the blokes going the other way where we're all going to Melbourne.
Yeah, no, it is quite incredible in that regard. And you then from Ardlethan ended up at the Farrer in the Farrer Football League playing with East Wagga and won the Baz Medal. Love the name, the Baz Medal.
The Baz Medal, mate.
Yes.
Actually, you wouldn't believe it. I won. Two things on the one day. I won the Baz Medal and I won a red billy card.
Wow.
Then a raffle.
That's a story in itself.
It is, mate. It is. It was just I don't know what ever happened to the red billy card, though.
Now, one thing, Greg, like nowadays, we have the draft, the kids start from bang 18, that you actually, from there, ended up at South Melbourne, and earning the nickname the Bionic Man. We'll go on with that. But it was 23 before you made your debut. Sort of, was that just more the era of just getting discovered back then as much as anything?
Well, no, not really, mate. I'd been down to Melbourne. I went down when I was, I think, 15.
Okay.
And, I played in a trial match, and you wouldn't believe who I played against, Peter Bedford. Like, he just won the Brownlow. So,
fair opponent, yep.
Yeah, so you... And then I went down and I never stayed there, mate. I like a bush kid, you were just wanted to go home. So, I just kept going home. There was one where I'd been down there and I did my hamstring and I had a bruise from the top of my bum to the bottom of my ankle. But it cost me $50 to fly back to Wagga. And I rang my old man up from Wagga and said, listen, you better come pick me up. He said, I'm not driving to Melbourne. I said, I'm not in Melbourne. I'm in Wagga. Just, I don't know. I just couldn't handle the city, mate, for a start.
Yep. And so then you've ended up you've debuted for South Melbourne, didn't you, before the Sydney bit? So
yeah. Like, I think I was 22 when I went down to Melbourne. And I actually won the Baz Medal, and then everybody said, I was actually going through to play for, what was his name? He actually played for St Kilda. Come from Tasmania. Oh, Jesus.
Not Daryl Baldock, Ian Stewart. Geez.
It's Daryl Baldock, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he rang me up and wanted me to go down there.
Yep.
Now, in them days, you were zoned to,
Yes.
I was zoned to South Melbourne. So before I could get a clearance to go through to Daryl, I had to try and get a clearance off South Melbourne. And the only way they give me a clearance, they said, right, now, you do the training. And that was it. So, and then I played, 3 reserve grade games and then ended up playing A grade from then on.
And so from there, you're a little bit unlucky in terms of the era you were at. South Melbourne, Sydney wasn't really great.
Where were they playing their games at that stage?
Lakeside.
Well, when I first went there, we were playing in Melbourne.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
at Lakeside?
And then, that was the Lakeside Oval.
Yep.
And then we played the last game there against North Melbourne. And then the rest was in Sydney after that.
Now, explain that, how it got announced to all you guys that you were going, right, we now become virtually another new club. We're still South Melbourne, but we become a new club in Sydney. Explain how that was explained to you. And, of course, a couple of guys refused to do that, didn't they? Like, I'm trying to think, Silvio Fasciani, Shane, one of the Morwoods, I reckon.
One of the Morwoods, There was a few people. I mean, there was, like, even in, like, we went to the Caulfield Town Hall, and it was keep South and South against the Sydney regime. So basically, the members had the vote.
Yes, I remember that.
And they had the vote, and I mean, mate, they were spitting on us. Like, people were spitting on us because, like, mate, the only way they were going to survive is if we went to Sydney, because there's the only way that the AFL were going to look after us, and the only way they could have kept going. So, I mean, even though, like, the Keep South and South won the vote and Peter Bedford ended up as coach. So, basically, at one stage, we had 2 coaches, a committee, two committees.
Right. I do remember that now. Yep.
Yeah, we had 2 committees. We had 2 coaches. We did, like, you didn't know whether you were left or right or whatever. So, and I mean, in the finish, like, common sense prevailed, but, like, because if we didn't go to Sydney, there was no survival whatsoever. They were just going to cut us off and shut us down.
Now, what about, I remember the launch in Sydney on the Sydney Harbour, on the Sydney Opera House all that. What was that like?
Mate, that was the most harrowing day of my life, I reckon that was. All we did was run around and we ran across the bridge. We ran around the Opera House, down the steps. Then we went over to Luna Park and went running around there. And, mate, like, you can imagine, like, I know how actors feel, because take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4, like, it was something wrong on each time we did it. So, mate, by the end of the day, you got a heap of footballers wanting to kill a cameraman.
What was the mood amongst the players? Obviously, back in Melbourne with the 2 committees and the 2 coaching staff, et cetera, and then obviously having to go up to Sydney.
Well, I mean, mate, it wasn't so bad, because amongst the players it was easy, because there was people that wanted to stay in Melbourne, obviously, but I mean, they would go and play wherever South Melbourne played, if you know what I mean. Except, like there were still players that had a choice. Yeah. So I mean, you were given a choice. If you didn't want to come, don't come. But I mean, 90% of the players wanted to go because there was no future in Melbourne, if you know what I mean.
And you played under, so I'm just looking through, you played under with, Ian Stewart, Ricky Quaid, and of course under Bob Hammond being brought in by the AFL, obviously as fellow Nord people out there and all that side of thing, a famous coach at the parade. Describe all that sort of experience and for Sydney in that way.
Yeah, I mean, it was, man, honestly, I mean, probably the best coach that I ever had, and only this is only my opinion, was Ian Stewart. I mean,
okay.
And then Ricky took over, and I mean, Ricky took over probably at a hard time because when we went to Sydney, mate, it was just a nightmare to actually turn up to training because one day you were training at this oval, one day you were training, and you get a phone call an hour before you're ready to train.
Oh God!
You know, and I mean the whole time we you know, like we're at the FCG, we had a little change room out the back, cold showers. You had, but this was after games as well. We weren't allowed to train on the SCG. Yeah. And I mean, it was just like you wouldn't call us a AFL club. Yeah. And I mean, and the thing about Sydney's rugby league, so I mean, they didn't care about us.
How did you navigate your way around Sydney, especially with the last minute changes for your training schedule? Would have been a nightmare.
Well, mate,
you would have dominated in that way, Smithy. You wouldn't have found that a problem whatsoever, I wouldn't have thought.
Just bluff your way through, mate.
Nothing wrong with bluffing with bullshit, Smithy.
Fake it till you make it.
No, but I mean, one game, it was a night game, and I was working at Bankstown, which is probably an hour from the city. And we were playing Geelong. I had to ring him up and tell him I was stuck in traffic, and I got there with probably 15 minutes before we ran on the ground.
Wow, incredible!
Because of the traffic.
Yeah.
So, mate,
and I mean,
yep, go on. Sorry,
go for it. Go for it.
So I was going to say, we get to the next part of your nickname, the Bionic Man.
Lou Richards, mate. Lou Richards.
Okay. Yep. Geez, he was good with that, wasn't he? He managed to get a few. He managed to get a few which stuck over the years, didn't he?
Yeah, he has, mate. And honestly, like not too many people know now, but I mean, it used to be you turn up and the Bionic Man's there. You go, mate, will you cut that out? You know, like Louis had everybody sort of Lou Richards. You got a nickname and it's stuck all the way through.
Yeah. And then, so your time then at South Melbourne, you obviously didn't play in any finals. You certainly played with some pretty fair players like Barry Round, Mark Browning, Bernie Evans, Tony Morwood, John Roberts, which he listens to our podcast. So, g'day, John. Yeah. So some pretty fair names and all that.
Oh man, we had Len Thompson. We had Neville Fields.
Yep.
We had Robert Dean. Mate, we had plenty of players. We just couldn't put it all together, if you know what I mean. I mean, 1981, we won the night grand final.
Yes,
I mean,
that's right. Yeah.
You know, so I mean that was probably the start of Sydney, if you know what I mean.
Yep. What was that like, the night grand final?
Oh, man.
Winning that.
Yeah, I broke my hand. I broke my hand.
Building someone, Smithy, or what?
Beg your pardon?
Building someone, or what?
No, man, it wasn't like that. I put my hand down on the ground to turn around, and somebody stuck their stops in between my fingers.
Was that at Waverley?
And as I turned, that was at Waverley.
Yeah.
So it was probably the only one time that they kept the lights on and it didn't. They didn't turn them off, mate.
So then, from what happened therefore to go to Collingwood from there?
Yeah, mate, I went. Well, I think it was Don Roach went over and he took over.
Yes,
and then
he was by the league. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, by the AFL, and mate, I ended up having a bit of a not an altercation, but I went and met with him, and he said basically because they had what is it? The ex-Richmond halfback flanker. He went up there coaching.
John Northey.
Yeah, he went up there coaching, and spoke to him. I was fit as a fiddle, but next minute they said, "Oh, we're not going to give you a contract." But I said, "Well, fair enough." So then I left, went back to Melbourne, and I went to New South Wales and then went back to Melbourne, and they put a bounty on me head, mate, of 90 grand.
Jeez.
So that
was big coin back, big money back then.
Yeah. So they did that, and the only one that could afford it was Collingwood, mate.
Okay.
Christopher Scaife had to make his money back.
Yeah,
no, he was Brisbane.
Scaife was
Brisbane.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Edelson, that's it.
Yeah. But
mate, I never cost them that much money.
Yeah. And describe your time at the Pies. So playing under originally there Bob Rose, and of course, then when the next year where they fell away a bit in '86, where Lee Matthews took over.
Yeah, basically, mate, like Collingwood, I went through a bit of a time with them as well. Like the first year I went to Collingwood, we had to drop our wages because they were going broke.
Yeah, people don't realise out there how very nearly clubs, Collingwood, Richmond, where they got in that ridiculous war with each other and just bled themselves. How close clubs were to going under, you know. And
they were, mate. We had.
I reckon Roots just dropped a catch too. Good news in the background.
Yeah, I just seen that.
Yeah.
I mean, Collingwood, like you said, Richmond, because, mate, when I went to Collingwood, there was Rains, Richardson.
Yeah.
I mean, Cloak.
Yep.
Who else?
Mark Williams. Brian Taylor.
Yes. Shaw. Shaws, all the Shaws. So, you had massive names, but never, like we couldn't put it together there either.
Yeah. Seven.
Like it was like a fantastic, like if you write it down on paper, you say it's a fantastic side. But I mean, if you don't play as a team, then you don't end up with a fantastic side.
And describe your time of playing for Collingwood, especially the, fanatic supporters at Vic Park.
Yeah, Vic Park.
Oh, mate. We played Fitzroy at the park one day, and at half time we were down.
Yep.
So we're walking off the ground at half time. I thought we were going to get attacked. And mate, luckily we won because we didn't get attacked after that. Christ, it's just an amazing place. But I mean, like Collingwood supporters are probably different to every other supporter.
Yes, different breed.
What was it
different
like?
Breed.
What was it like playing at some of those old traditional grounds like Moorabbin and Arden Street and
Windy Hill?
Windy Hill, yeah.
Windy Hill, yeah. Mate, Windy Hill was magnificent, and it was Windy Hill.
Yep.
And I mean, and that's when you could actually say like those grounds supported. Like you were up against it before you even started, if you know what I mean. So, I mean, it's like St Kilda. St Kilda, you go and play there, and Friday nights, honestly, they would put the sprinklers on.
Yes, famous.
It's
famous
a story
for
that keeps coming back, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean you say most of them, even the Lakeside Oval. Like I played at the Lakeside Oval one day, and it was hailing, and the lake was like the ocean. You could have surfed on it.
Yeah. So it was pretty close to the ground, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably one of the only grounds that had parking, had the trams, it had all the transport, everything. It's no wonder that like at the moment they got the racing there, the car racing.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice and easy to get to, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
I've never went to a game at Lakeside. Certainly went and had a look at it one day, but that was the closest I ever got in terms of that regard. So,
see, I mean, it's like if you talk about, like you got Collingwood, Fitzroy used to play down the road.
Oh, and played at Vic Park for a while too.
Yeah.
Fitzroy.
And, like all those, like it was all within kicking distance, basically, except for Geelong. And that was about the only one. So, I mean, now, mate, they travel everywhere.
How about playing under Bob Rose? And can you remember, did Robert Rose come out and watch it all?
Yes.
Yeah. I will say that, Pete, I will say the book on Bob Rose and his son, written by the other brother in Peter, is the best sports book I've ever read. So,
oh, mate, you wouldn't. Bobby Rose had a little white van with the wheelchair access at the back.
Yeah.
And man, he would, if you went to the club, he would be there. I mean, amazing, like to look after your son like that, if you know what I mean. And Bob Jr. he was a great man as well.
Yeah. I said he used to come over for Shield game. That was a tradition that Bob and Rob would come over at a Shield game to Adelaide Oval each year. So, I can remember, like I wasn't that old, so I was probably 15 or so when I used to. I can remember speaking to him, and I always called him Mr. Rose and that at Shield games. So I certainly remember and that. But in terms of a book, it's a magnificent book.
What was the name of that book again?
I have to look it up. It's written by Peter Rose. Okay. I reckon it's the Rose Boys, but yeah. So, and then of course you've ended up from Collingwood. How did you end up at the Ponderosa?
Well, I mean, I was like growing up. I played for New South Wales, so in them days we used to play against Canberra, and Cowboy Neal used to play for Canberra. Yeah,
of course, yeah.
And then the Cowboy ended up over here, and then somehow he must have got wind of, because I wasn't disgruntled with Collingwood. I just, mate, my hamstrings, my back, I was like, probably all the years of not, like just playing with injuries and all the rest of it, that I sort of all caught up with me at once. So then Cowboy got me over here halfway during the year.
Yeah, I thought it was during the year. Yeah.
Yeah, which wasn't too bad, but the trouble is he put me straight in the A grade, and you can imagine what the blokes in South Australia thought. They thought, well, who's this bloke?
Yeah, who's this upstart pushing one of our guys out?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn a heap of names, and like there were stages where I'd be standing by myself, they wouldn't even kick the ball to me.
Yeah.
Things like that. But I mean, the next year I was fine.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. But mate, it took me a while to get into the flow, if you know what I mean.
Did you know anybody here in SA at the time? I mean, obviously you moved from Melbourne up to Sydney and then down to Adelaide.
Well, Craig Brady, who I played with at South Melbourne.
Yes.
And, he was playing here. So,
I remember him at Centrals. Yeah, he probably played as much down back in Centrals as he did up forward.
He was centre half back more than centre half forward, I think. Yeah.
And now you played it. Now you must have gone all right in the second year, Smithy, because you won the BNF in the second year. And now look at some of the names you played with. So Rene Van Dommel was captain, with Scotty Lee, of course, well known, with a cult figure in the SNFL, Rudy Mandamaker, who topped the goal kicking 6 years in a row. Peter Krieg, very good player. Peter Krieg, rated him highly in the middle.
Yeah.
So you played some, and of course after Cowboy, you played under the famous, Donald Neil Curley.
Yes, man. He's another great coach, mate. He made it. Well, he's a man's man, as you know. Yeah. He just made, like you can't say enough about him because he just whatever he said, he does.
Yeah.
He was just a great man, mate. And I got along pretty well with him. I mean, he I think, was probably one of the best coaches I've probably ever had.
Yeah, I see you.
As well.
You played it, lost a couple of lost a couple of first semis too there, looking where you finished fourth. So you're around the mark a couple of times and that. So,
I mean, mate, if you have a look at the side on paper, I mean, how many players out that side, like you had, that went on to play Victorian footy or AFL footy? I mean, it wasn't too bad at all.
Well, geez, just before you got there, the famous name of Platten, of course, Richard Cousins, the cult figure of Wilbur Wilson too. Wilbur Wilson in 1984, after Nord had beaten Centrals in the first semi, one of my best mates was a Centrals man, and he'd played indoor cricket that night. He wanted to go, to Elizabeth, and I didn't think anything of it. I've walked into Elizabeth with my Nord jumper on, and they've gone, "Geez, pal, you've got guts or you're crazy." I said, "Oh, look, probably a bit of both." And within 10 minutes, it was fine. And Wilbur Wilson played the spoons that night, and I just sat back with my jaw on the floor. He was amazing.
Yes, mate, he is. He can sing a bit as well.
Yeah. So, and then you've ended up captaining the Dogs. That must have been a pretty big thrill to, as an import. I always reckon you're going pretty well to get accepted to end up captaining a club.
Yeah, I mean, mate, it was. I think it was like the start of a bit of a new era, because Curls had left, Stewie had taken over, and like there was a new administration, whatever. And mate, they were looking to turn it into sort of like a family club, and like I had a few kids and all the rest of it, and they wanted. But I mean, mate, like I just got too old in the finish.
Of course, though, your whole time at Centrals, and he is a person who deserves enormous credit. A remarkable record in Chris Grant.
Yes.
Just extraordinary. 40-odd years, 43, 40-odd years. And that he was certainly a remarkable SANFL man and a Dogs man.
Oh, mate, the amount of work that Chris has done for the club, and like you said, just 40. Mate, if you can last 44 years, that's an exceptional effort by itself, let alone anything else that you've done. You know,
it'd be remiss, Peter, for where we are at the moment, where we record each week. And of course, I played for Payneham Cricket Club, and proud to be a life member of the club, where Keith Duke was the secretary for 62 years, which is an Australian record. So that's something we take a lot of pride in at Payneham, and why we are called the Dukes. Mm-hmm. Very smart man thought of that name in terms of that. I may have been mowing a lawn one day and thought, why in the hell aren't we called the Dukes instead of the Knights, which meant nothing? So, brought it up at committee meeting the next week, and it got passed in under a minute. Everyone sort of went, why in the hell didn't we think of that years ago? Just bang. So, yeah. Now, from there, Smithy, from your end of your career at Centrals, now I know when I then met you and you're coaching the Roseworthy side, and we had some fun times with that.
That was.
Where did your footy go immediately after Dogsland, where you decided the body was gone at Centrals?
Well, I mean, first of all, like I worked with one of the ex-players, Denny Harrington.
Yes.
And he was coaching Paraka at the time, so he wanted me to go down there, and I was like, really, do I want to get straight out of it and straight back into it? And I didn't, and then I spoke to a few blokes. Like I coached Salisbury for 1 year.
Yep.
Then I left there and went and played at Gawler South for a year, and then I got a hernia, and I said, well, that's probably the end of me, and that was. I sort of give up after that, and then never, like I concentrated more on work and everything since then, and then you wouldn't believe it, my daughter started playing, so I got back into it again.
But how did the Roseworthy bit come across? How did that happen?
That was a mate of mine who took over the Wasley's Hotel.
Yes.
Neville Clark was his name, and he said, "Oh, we're going to coach the Rose with the, what is it, Division 9. I said, well, how does that work? Oh, well, they all come at the pub and they just need a coach. I said, all right, we'll go out there.
Now, he was a little guy, wasn't he, on memory?
Yeah, little guy. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's how it all come about. And then me and him did it the first year. Then Neville gave it away the second year, and I kept going. And then after that, I think they abandoned us.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
started to struggle for numbers.
They didn't have enough numbers, and that was it. So
that was fun too, Pete. In terms of
the best, the thing about that, it's a university side. So the end of year drinks is amazing.
Yes.
That is the most amazing thing that I've ever been to in my entire life. And I was cooking the barbecue.
Yes, I do remember one of those, yes. And, of course, coaching that, Pete, was fascinating and all that if everyone was at the campus that week, they'd quite often have quite a reasonable side. Mm-hmm. But then once the holidays came, good luck.
Yep.
And
you were lucky. You were like, there was, I think, one or maybe more than one, but there was a couple of games where I think the boys had been out the night before or whatever. Next minute, we go in at half time and go back out at half time. We go back on the ground at 3/4 time, and anyway, they go, we're 2 players short. They were still in the change rooms.
Yeah, there was some fun times.
Mate, there was more than fun. Like, you couldn't, like, it was serious, but it wasn't taken seriously.
No, and I remember that in terms of the holidays time. It was, Rob, you're coming to umpire, but you've got to bring 6 players with you as well. It was, it was always challenging.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, oh dear, it was great times though, and they were good kids.
Yeah, and I do remember one game too, and I actually can't remember the guy's name. Not that I'd mention it. And it was an away game from uni, so it was Rob, you've got to come and bring some guys with you. So the game started, and I get there, and I've got 4 guys, and you've gone, what have you managed to bring, Rob? I said, well, 2 of them are okay, and I've gone, one of them, I reckon he's played 4 games, and I don't think he's had a kick yet. And he got a blatant free kick. The guy's pushed him right in the middle of the back. I've blown the whistle. It was just, and as he's getting up, I've actually realised that's right. And he's done the old-fashioned, throw the ball up in the air, kicked it, and it just went over the man on the mark.
Yep.
And everyone was just crying with laughter. Yeah, it wasn't. And he was pretty good about it. He went, I've never played before. And no worries, mate. Let's have some fun. And And you were pissing yourself, Smithy. You went, geez, Robert, you certainly bought something there interesting. Yeah. So. And then
great people.
Go through there. So with the Central's women's team start, and you wouldn't have imagined that you've ended up your daughter playing footy, and go through all that experience, and then ending up at the Dogs, and of course we'll go to the big day in that regard as well this year.
Yes, mate. It was. I mean, it's like, well, when I first was given the captaincy, they had a walkway out in the middle of the oval at Centrals.
Yep.
Anyway, we had to walk on this walkway, and because I was up there, Elby would have been probably maybe 2.
Yep.
And she's walked up on the walkway with me and followed me. So to me, something like that enticed her to play footy, because I mean she's played netball for the local here in Elizabeth. Then she went up to Gawler Centrals, won premierships, won best and fairest, won league best and fairest. And then she said, my other daughter was playing up at Eastern Park, and she said, I'll go up there to have a game just to keep fit for the netball. And she started doing that, and then the coach of Centrals come there and seen her play and said, well, come down here and have a go. And the rest is history.
Yeah. I tell you what, Pete, she has a bloody crack. I'll give you the big tip.
Bit more than the old man?
Oh, no, I won't. I can't have a crack at Smithy in that way, but let's just say Shelby enjoys the tackling aspect side of the game. She has a real crack, and I enjoyed commentating games Shelby played in down at Glenelg, and watch. And then at the grand final, Central sort of came from nowhere. Look, I admit I think very lucky free kick in the end, but so be it. But it was just to see the pride on your face out on the ground, and Shelby admitted herself she wasn't good at making a speech, so it was all she'd written it out beforehand. But then the big line at the end was, "Hey, I've upstaged you, Dad. It's something you never mentioned," and that was great. That was the real probably genuine bit out of it. Like, I'm not saying the rest wasn't genuine, but it's not as easy when it was a written speech, and that I thought that bit came across beautifully. And don't worry, just by fluke standing next to you at that stage, and don't worry, Pete, I did make him buy a copy of my book.
Yeah, well done.
I could just see the pride on your face then, and that meant a hell of a lot to you, mate.
Oh, mate, yes, it was. And I mean, mate, it's very hard to get to a grand final, let alone win one, let alone be BBOG. I mean, to do the whole thing in one day is a magnificent effort, I think.
Oh, look, and Central stuck at it. Where South looked the better side the majority of the game, but they didn't put them away. The old scoreboard pressure didn't build, kept the Dogs in it just enough. And look, too, Ben Hunt is a pain in person, and that's how I was wrapped for Rex to coach a flag as well.
Mate, I think like South Adelaide, mate, their game is defence, and I mean, and they want to bottle it up and bottle it up and bottle it up and just keep moving it forward. Whereas Centrals need to get it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's fair from having, commentated a bit of the women's comp. I'd agree with that. I can certainly see that.
Yeah.
Logic. I'm certainly not disagreeing with it, vehemently or anything like that. Yeah. Yep.
But I think, like it's you can say either way, it's a toss of the coin. I mean, South should have put them away a bit earlier. They didn't, and that's the thing with women footy, mate. If you don't kick straight and you don't put them away early, you're still within
in the game,
of winning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a different game too, and as a Nord man, we played against South in the minor round and hadn't scored. And Nord are playing South in the grand final. Thought, right, I'll go along because I reckon it's always more important to be around when you lose than when you win. Out of that. So around, and if you told me before that game, I would start chanting Norwood, and be yelling out to girls directly, come back 35, not even knowing their names, quickly give us a team sheet, and that.
Yeah.
What won me over out of that was guys footy, the guys who miss out in the 24th, 25th, 26th, their jaws on the floor, dummies in the dirt. Where the girls, no way, they're involved and all that. And I just watched this totally united group. And Steve Simons, who's now Collingwood coach, was Nord coach at that stage, and I got on really well with Simon. I spoke to him for nearly 3/4 an hour the next day about it, and he said, yeah, that's the real thing which really I love about women's footy. And so I get it. Like I get sick of the male bit. Oh, there's no goals, and and all that. It's boring as the criticism. Why not actually? Yes, the skills have got to improve. We all know that it's getting there, but let's also forget women's footy, because it had to start the wrong way round to get the competition up and going, to get girls playing, saving community football clubs. They had to start at the top and work their way down, not the other way round. And guys don't get that, won't look at the whole picture.
Well, I mean, man, it's like Shelby. I mean, you take Shelby. I mean, like 3 years or 4 years, she's been playing footy.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean,
So she didn't learn the bit of turning to your side, which we all did as kids, as males, where you protect yourself.
Yep.
And so the girls in that way, you cringe sometimes, like, oh.
The first years that she played, mate, I used to go there and watch. You know what I mean, mate? It was. I said somebody's going to get killed here because
exactly.
they were clumsy. They were clumsy. They were awkward. They'd fall into tackles like that, head first into this, head first into that. And I mean, mate, it's like they didn't know how to protect themselves. The umpires are trying to give free kicks, but they can't. How can they give a free kick when they're both headbutting each other?
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Oh, it is. And I actually umpired a game on Saturday and it is a different challenge. It's and exactly the same thing. You were looking at it and going, geez, I can't pay a free there. I'd like to keep the ball moving, but there ain't anything there.
Yeah, that's right. But I think the biggest thing I find with the girls, because I've been out to training a few times and run a bit of water for them, is the knowledge that they want to know. They want to know. You know.
I agree.
They want to learn.
Yes.
They want to learn. And I mean, as long as you want to learn, you'll learn. I mean, if you don't want to learn, then you'll be back to stage one, if you know what I mean.
And and I've done that. So I stayed around for that Glenelg Centrals game down at Glenelg for the presentations because Violet Patterson, Stephen Patterson's daughter, who we've had Stephen on the show as well, I hung around because Violet had played pretty well and ended up chatting to her and going through a couple of things. And, it was very much a sponge-like attitude. Yeah, give me more, you know. And that's I'm a big G for women's footy, and you just see the numbers playing, and therefore girls play, guys hang around, vice versa. It's saving community footy clubs, and I think that's probably the most important thing.
Well, that's true too, mate. Because I mean, it's I mean, if you have a look in the Elizabeth area here, there's the men's footy is going downhill at 110 mile an hour.
Yeah,
and I mean, mainly because like money, sponsorship, blah blah blah. And I mean, you can't like the kids, the boys are not sort of there's nowhere for them to play, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and so that's the girls then, and then hopefully it injects more males as well, and exactly that. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, Smithy.
Yeah.
What was the feeling like, obviously, with Centrals not playing in a final series this year and then going all the way through to winning a grand final? What was the feeling like around home there?
Oh, mate. Yeah, a little bit different, mate.
Well, let's go. Let's go for the first final. Obviously making the finals. Excitement, anticipation.
Oh, excitement, anticipation. I mean, the day, like the minute we went down to South Adelaide, the day we went down there and played South Adelaide, the wet conditions weren't going to help us in any way whatsoever. And I thought the girls played all right. We just couldn't score. You know, and I mean, they come off disappointed, but then we were lucky enough because we were higher than Norwood.
Yep,
we played Norwood at Centrals, and I mean, it was probably good that they played Norwood at Centrals because Norwood's a small ground, Central's a big ground, so the girls there, I mean, the score, I think they kicked an extra, they won by 28 points or something. Yeah. Which give them a boost, which then sort of give them the incentive to think, all right, we are good enough to be in this, So, and I think they were in it all the way through the game. I think in the first half we couldn't score, and then, like I said, I think South Adelaide wanted to bottle things up.
Oh, you're a bit unlucky too. You lost a couple with injury early.
We lost the ruckman and then had to replace her with another girl that hadn't, Charlotte Riggs, who was a champion. Like she's going to be a champion footballer down the track. But I mean, luckily enough, mate, they had the the cattle to go on with it. I mean,
No, they stuck
like
at
you
it.
said,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, they from probably halftime onwards, I thought we were the better side. We just couldn't score. And then
I was standing
like
with Greg Edwards towards the end, and as the 25-metre penalty got paid for to go through to the goal line, I said, your bar trade's just trebled tonight, Greg, and he just smiled and went, yeah, this is a good result. Yep. So, and he's a good man, Megsy.
Oh, mate, a great man.
Yeah, huge respect.
But I mean, you only had to have a look at the crowd that was there. Though.
Oh, incredible.
I mean, it was. I mean, I just
3,250. I got there just thinking, oh, girls' grand final, but they're charging to get in today, so
might be
and all that.
Less, yep.
And all of a sudden, I've ended up parking halfway to Melbourne and walking over. And as I'm getting there, I'm going, geez, this is a big numbers, and walked in the ground. Yeah. And I'd actually been to the North-South League game the previous Sunday at the Ponderosa, at Prospect, and there was far more people there. There was 3,250 people, and it was a great atmosphere.
Oh, it was. And I mean, like, I think South Adelaide had their cheer squad there. I think Central's had their cheer squad.
Yeah.
Plus Central's had, I think, most of the blokes as well. So, which was great, I think.
And a lot of the juniors from both sides were there.
Yep.
You know, and Central's having their best year since, I think it's 85, I think, or so, with their juniors. So, some good news there, and two, and that were in that way at Dogland, and they're on their way back. Centrals, there's no doubt about that. They've been down for a little bit, but they're on their way back.
Well, man, like you've got to have a little bit of luck sometimes. Don't you? You've got to throw yourself out there if you want to go forward. And, I mean, if you don't go forward, you lose the whole lot.
Yep.
As long as you can make the finals or be around the mark, you're half a chance.
Righto, Smithy, the way we tend to try to end. So, best players played with?
The best players?
Yeah, best players you played with. Any club?
Oh, mate.
And you can give us 3 or 4 because
give us 4.
Yeah, we always stick with 4.
Well, probably, but you can't go far past Barry Round.
Yeah, I thought that might be the first name. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, another guy, Stevie Wright.
Yeah, good player. Yep.
Yeah, I think probably maybe Tony Morwood.
Yeah, didn't mind him.
Yeah, and then like probably over here, I think you've a fair few players. I mean, you just
Gilbert.
Gilbert, Derek Kickett.
Yes.
You had Cree.
Yeah.
Rene Van Dommel. Those blokes were.
He was underrated, Rene Van Dommel.
Oh, mate, he was underrated, and I mean, the amount of work he used to do was unbelievable. And I mean, another guy that probably never got a lot of mention was Peter Bythorn.
Yeah, the late Peter Bythorn. Yep.
Yeah, he used to ruck for us, mate. And
yeah.
He's probably one of the smallest ruckmen in the league, and was battling against all these other blokes. But if he tapped the ball to you, he hit on the chest and the way you went. Yeah. So I mean, there's been some, luckily to play with, some pretty good footballers.
And as we all know, the best thing about sport is the friends and mateships you make out of it. I always say we've got this crazy thing in Australia and I've got to be honest, I'm running a uni day on Saturday, and it's premiership reunions. And I said, why do we have to do it with premiership reunion? Like one guy replied back last night, I didn't play. I said, you could turn up and say you kicked 10 and won the best on ground medal 20 years ago. No one's going to know. Like, for goodness sake. But we've got this shocking bit too. And look, actually, I was, the article, the article on Fred Block, when I wrote it, I'm getting all these messages. Has Choco passed away? And I'm going, why have we got this thing that you can only tell someone you love them when they're dead? Why in the hell can't you do it when they're alive? It means a tad more. And so we have got this weird thing in that way with sport in particular. So, yeah.
Yeah, like you said, it's never during. It's always after.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And we'll get you out of here on this one. Your hardest opponents that you played against, mate?
Oh, man. I used to have a, in Melbourne. Well, mate, one of the, is your Norwood friend. Is, Jesus.
So with Macca?
Macca.
Yeah.
Man, Macca. Well,
I think a fair bit of mutual respect between you two.
Oh, there was in the finish, mate, and we still have the same for each other now. I mean, man, he was a great player, and I remember him. Like I'm just a little bit older than him. So one day at Norwood, he's laying on top of me. And he said, "It's about time you give it up, old fellow."
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Not on your life.
Yeah.
Nothing like a good sledge.
Nothing like a good sledge. Nothing like trying to get into.
If there were any two opponents I could see having a drink and a smoke together, it's you two, well and truly. So
he is, mate, a great player, a great person. You know what I mean? He is a great person. And I mean, mate, like you said about that, like I had the opportunity to play on Bruce Dewell, and I played on Gary Ablett, you know, and I mean, you play on those players and you don't dream. Like I was probably the day I played on Ablett, and I played for Collingwood, he kicked 1 goal, 4. So, mate, I walked off the ground. A very, very lucky man, mate. A very lucky man.
Yeah.
So absolutely brilliant.
You just cross your chest for that one, mate.
Absolutely.
Can't argue with that at all, Smithy. Look, greatly appreciated having you on board. All the best to Shelby, and we will follow up that other matter which you and I have spoken about off here with my role.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't really discuss that with my
role,
mate. Samful. So, all the best in that regard, and look forward to catching up soon, Smithy.
Not a worry, mate, and thank you very much.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for joining us.
See you, mate.
See you, mate.
Thanks, Greg.
See you, mate. Bye.
Bye.